Hundreds of people stood in line this past Saturday at the joint opening of Milk Bar and Pizza in Harvard Square. Fans and community members said they were excited for the impact these national brands will bring to the area.
I've only been here like once, so it'll bring a lot more people. It brought me.
Been over an hour.
Over an hour? I think probably close to 2. But
yeah.
I heard other people in here for 3 and 3.5, so
Wow.
I think we're on the lucky side.
The project was delayed for nearly a year and a half by the Harvard Square Neighborhood Association and the City of Cambridge Zoning Board, said Denise Gilson, the executive director of the Harvard Square Business Association. Milk Bar's PR manager, Kim D'Angelo, said Milk Bar has been working overtime to build positive relationships with the community.
We're a big company and we have a lot of treats to share, so we are also really focused on giving back to the community. There's plenty of homeless shelters in the neighborhood or schools that would like donations, so we've been doing a lot of that, and they've been really welcoming.
Gilson said Milk Bar is bringing excitement to the area, but she also had some reservations.
So it'll be interesting to see, how long it's sustained. Because this happens a lot. When Pinkberry came, several years ago, people couldn't wait to get Pinkberry, and, it lasted for about 18 months, and everybody loved Pinkberry, and then they moved on to something else.
From Harvard Square, this is Isabel Carter. Back to you. In an era of increasing isolation and mistrust, one man in Somerville is using food to break down barriers and bring people together.
I just recently saw a stat that said we gather half as often as we did in 1970.
Paul Castiglione is trying to change that with the Open Kitchens project. Still in its trial stages, the project functions like a supper club with a feel-good twist.
This is a really good way to bring people together, to feel that we have this sense of community, you know what I mean? That community is about families connecting each other, bringing people together, bringing friends together through the taste of the foods that we eat.
Magalis Troncoso is one of the immigrant chefs that Castiglione invites to cater the dinners and talk about their cuisine, culture, and work. The dinners also feature a facilitated conversation on topics like how to live an inspired life.
And I thank Paul for, providing this opportunity for us to meet immigrants and for them to have the opportunity to not only cook and share their food that they have passion for, but to share their story as well.
For WEBJ, I'm Isabel Carter. Community members gathered this week to workshop a bill that, if passed, would add doulas to the list of care providers and benefits covered by Medicaid in Massachusetts. Representative Liz Miranda, a Democrat from the 5th Suffolk District who sponsored the bill, shared her reasons for supporting it.
So I represent parts of Roxbury and Dorchester. In my first week on the job as a state representative, I got some really troubling data that most of the zip codes in my district had some of the poorest outcomes for moms and babies. And I don't have children, but I went and did my research, and learning that black women, die at 4 times the rate of my white sisters really had me sort of appalled.
Doulas are caregivers who provide support and advocacy for birthing parents during pregnancy, birth, and beyond. Until now, they have only been able to work with families who can pay out of pocket for their services. Longtime doula Lorenza Holt explained how this lack of access disproportionately affects marginalized communities in Massachusetts.
When I started talking to women in my Latino community, realized that there was an inordinate amount of birth trauma, and that sort of put me on this path to how can we help birthing families have positive birth experiences rather than traumatic experiences.
Participants also cited studies that have shown that working with doulas can reduce the risk of complications and unnecessary procedures during the birthing process. Christina Gable from March of Dimes, Massachusetts, described this as a return on investment.
So we really feel that if you make that upfront investment in the birthing parent, then that will pay off literally in other care that they might not need, that they would have needed had they not had a doula.
Bill H1182 is expected to pass at the state level this legislative session. For WEBJ News, I'm Isabel Carter.
The Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh has had a profound effect on Jewish communities nationwide and in Boston. Our reporter joins us in Newton, Massachusetts with more on the story. Isabel?
On October 27th, 11 people were shot and killed at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Isabel Carter, and I'm standing here at Temple Shalom in Newton, Massachusetts to talk to Rabbi Allison Berry about some new policies that have been instated since that time.
I think where we're at is we have a huge debate now about whether or not we have present security. You walked into the synagogue today and we now have a guard who's here with us tonight because of the fact that we have a large event going on upstairs.
In addition to adding armed security to big events, Temple Shalom has begun a new practice of keeping its doors locked during its open hours. Worshippers now have to be buzzed in by a front desk attendant to enter the space.
And I think the debate is that do we change fundamentally who we are, and we want to be a welcoming place whose doors are open. The message is we want you here, and we want our neighbors here, and we want to be part of the community. Or do we build up walls and put up fences and send a message to people that now we have armed guards and we don't want you to enter? And that's really antithetical to everything that we try to build as a part of the Jewish community.
As an individual and as a Jew, it was just shock and horror. How can this happen, and what does that mean for all of us, and what is the American climate now that has led to the ramping up of racist rhetoric and in particular also incidents of hostility to Jews?
That was David Burnett sharing his first reactions to the news of the Pittsburgh shooting as a private citizen. He said that his reaction as a professional, working with the Massachusetts synagogues, had to be much more focused.
Well, the first reaction, which we were involved in partnership with other organizations, was in reaching out to the community with words of comfort and organizing vigils and solidarity gatherings. In particular, there was a wonderful and large vigil on Boston Common the next day.
Notably, this brought them to the very site of another place where the impact of violence and bigotry on the Jewish community was on full display.
I think Trump said Nazis are buying people. Yeah.
The Lest We Forget exhibit, by German-American artist Luigi Toscano, is comprised of 60 large-scale portraits of Holocaust survivors, including 9 Boston residents. It was publicly visible at the time of the shooting in Pittsburgh. Visitors at the exhibit reacted to this somber coincidence.
And I mean, I think for younger Jewish Americans, it's a wake-up call. You know, I always grew up thinking like, you know, having a fear, not a fear, but like I knew anti-Semitism was out there, and I think, and also having grown up, you know, knowing Holocaust survivors, and that, I think this generation, it was sort of a wake-up call to them that this actually exists and is on the rise, unfortunately.
It's kind of demoralizing, you know, it seems like every month there's a new shooting, so it's just really sad. It seems like it's always targeted towards people, minorities. Like in Orlando, we had the gay shooting and then the synagogue shooting. So.
Another viewer told us she had recognized one of the portraits as the rabbi who married her and her husband some 47 years ago. She spoke to us about what she saw as the renewed purpose of exhibits like Lest We Forget.
To keep the memories of these individuals alive and to keep alive the collective knowledge that Luigi Toscano is talking about. That if we forget that this too is possible, that this happened, and how easily we are swayed by our fears and the things we don't understand, swayed to doing the unthinkable.
Back in Newton, Rabbi Berry also commented on Lest We Forget.
When you make them real, you know, when you make them our fathers and mothers and children, then we can feel more empathy, and then we maybe think more deeply about the meaning of life, and that life is not so and that we realize that life is really sacred. It's not a throwaway.
From Newton, Massachusetts, I'm Isabel Carter. Back to you.
Thank you, Isabel.